The following is for the purpose of commentary and review. Violet Evergarden was written by Reiko Yoshida, directed by Taichi Ishidate, musically composed by Evan Call, developed by Kyoto Animation, and licensed by Netflix. Please support the official release. So, I'm going to tell you everything that I can about this show in about 2 to 3 minutes without spoiling anything. This is the best anime I've seen this season. Period. It's a 10 out of 10. I can describe it with just one word. Masterpiece. If you've seen A Silent Voice, then you're already familiar with the work of the author of this script, Reiko Yoshida. If that tells you anything, then you already know that this is a phenomenal story with moving dialogue. It does all this without grotesque gore and oversaturation of sexuality, and though it does have violence, the show utilizes it with proper discretion, and doesn't take away from the raw emotion and story. You will cry, and it will be for many reasons. You'll feel for the characters, you'll ache for them to reach their goals. This show is excellent when it comes to grabbing the attention of the viewer, and washing over them with waves of empathy. If all you needed was to know whether you should watch or not, the answer is yes, and why haven't you yet? After watching the show, I'd highly encourage you to come back and finish this video. So, without further ado, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this show. Found in a war zone as a lone orphan and raised to be a living weapon, Violet Evergarden never really knew what it meant to be human. All she knew was Major Gilbert Bougainvillea of the Leidenschaftliche Army and his orders. Post-bellum, she struggles to find purpose in existence, even with Major Gilbert's final orders. When taken under the care of former Lieutenant Colonel Claudia Hodgins, a good friend of Gilbert, Violet at first finds difficulty in conforming to civilian life, being far too blunt and unable to shed her militarized habits. Soon she asks Hodgins to work for his company as an auto-memory doll, a term coined by a doctor who hired young women as amanuenses for his blind wife who was an author. The purpose of an auto-memory doll is to interpret and convey the speaker's thoughts and emotions onto paper. Violet takes interest, theorizing that by becoming an auto-memory doll, she herself can discover what the phrase "I love you" means, Gilbert's last words to Miss Evergarden. The irony here is that to become an optimal doll, one must master empathy, which Violet discovers upon miscommunicating in her first letter for a foolish woman who is trying to play hard to get with a man that she pined for. Later on, she flunks an auto-memory doll class when she's unable to write a letter as opposed to a stiff-collar report, which she remedies later with a simple yet heartfelt note in the stead of her doll classmate, Luculia Marlborough. This letter is for her brother, Spencer, a survivor of the war, ridden with guilt because of the death of their parents, swallowing the pain with the aid of alcohol. This letter brings the siblings closer together, and grants Violet the honor of being deemed an official auto-memory doll. As the story progresses, Violet's letters aid more and more people, bringing nations in union, giving precious final words to those who need them from a loved one, and so much more. All of these experiences gain her the humanity that she never got to have. By learning empathy, she realizes the harm she inflicted while she was a living weapon. No longer the hollow doll she was, but a woman with a beating heart, now burning with regret. Without getting too far into just speaking about the story, she discovers that her major was MIA after the Battle of Intense, never to be seen again, and she eventually comes to terms with this, able to move past her great loss and gain her own purpose in life, righting the wrongs committed by way of wartime bloodshed. I think I may have cried every single episode of this show. What it does is it picks up your heart ever so gently, and then proceeds to suplex it in freaking half. But it's not always out of sorrow. Sometimes it's happiness, sometimes it's pity, but this show will put you through an emotional gauntlet, and it's a hauntingly beautiful one. It feels like a soul cleanse when seeing Violet smile so softly at the end of the final episode. The way I typically do things around here is with the talk of characters right after discussing the story. But the characters are so damn important that I'm going to keep them at the end, but everything else just begs discussion too. The animation is so refined and perfect that when going to watch other animations, they pale in comparison to the time and effort clearly put into this anime. Lighting was superb. The characters had a wide range of emotions that could have been conveyed perfectly even without audio or subtitles. Some of the backgrounds could have qualified as museum quality art pieces, and some of the shots of the show will be engraved into my memory forever. Like watching Violet attempt to glide across the lake for Oscar, Seeing her pick up the brooch in the first episode, or seeing her poor hand shatter from destroying the harness on this explosive, saving everyone on this train. Scenes like this stick to me, and I know I'm forgetting about some others that are really dear to me, but I think you should just go back and watch them for yourself and take in the animation firsthand, because my review can never fully do it justice. The score was brilliant. Moving is an understatement. All of it fit like a silk glove in each scene it was meant for. Evan Call, you're absolutely fantastic. This anime deserves Soundtrack of the Year because of your work. Now, this is going to sound really cheesy, but if the OP was a forecast, it would start out with a light breeze, turn to fierce gusts, rain heavily with thunder roaring throughout, with a gentle, soothing end, coming in like a rainbow across the sky. I may sound really melodramatic while describing this, but that's what the song is to me, metaphorically speaking. It comes in so powerfully and then just gracefully departs with the twinkling of the piano. And the ED is enough to send you into a second fit of tears after bawling because of the episode you just watched. Michi Shirube is like a marriage between a song of mourning and a lullaby, which is so damn fitting for a show about grief, healing, and finding new purpose in life. Other notable tracks include Across the Violet Sky, Believe In, and What It Means to Love. All these songs are my favorites of the show, and even listening to them now is enough to send me into tears. Side note, sound effects were excellent. No weird sounds for blood spilling like I stepped in a pile of ketchup. It actually sounded, like freaking liquid. So the sound is just as equal in quality to the animation, which is to say, extraordinary. And as another little tidbit, the voice acting, particularly in the dub. I wish Hodgins had a deeper voice. Gilbert kinda sounds like he's 16 during some of his lines. Benedict actually has a really good voice for the dub, and he makes it pretty funny. Catalea also sounds really hot. And Violet's voice? Okay, while it wasn't bad, I think she just needed to sound a little bit younger. Also, I would have preferred if she had a little less emotion in her voice, Something a little more deadpan. But I think that was a directorial decision as opposed to an acting decision. So the dubbed voice acting is like I'd say a 7 out of 10. But the original Japanese voice acting is fantastic. The plot is better than just solid. It's reasonable. It's paced naturally. And interesting things happen that not only up the ante to the episode it corresponds to, but also allows Violet to blossom in the way of personality. Pun slightly intended. And each episode, up until 11 through 13, which I accidentally watched out of order unknowingly, still trying to wrap my head around that one, but after watching them, I understood what was happening clearly, has its own personal plot encompassing it. Each plot has meaning and is tied neatly to the main character. For instance, the third episode where Violet's first real letter heals the old emotional wounds of Spencer, and she finally understands how words convey emotion, and what a person's intent behind them are. One of the key attributes to becoming a doll. With Iris and her old, unrequited love, Violet learns that love isn't always reciprocated and that rejection hurts. With Princess Charlotte, love is recognizing one's faults, but accepting them anyway and speaking purely from the heart. Leon taught her what loneliness is, and that even though someone may leave you, if they're precious to you, you always carry some part of them through your life. Oscar the writer teaches Violet that feeling and experiencing for someone without being there yourself is empathy, and that the loss of someone precious to you has weight, as there is an empty feeling left behind when they've parted from you. Then there's how she discovers what happened to Gilbert, her denial and wondering to find him, her anger and despair when understanding that there's nothing she can do about it, learning that she deserves to live and move on, making her new purpose in life to help and heal others as she already has. God, it's just... Hold up. Trying not to cry again. Just give me a second. Okay, I'm good. But to wrap up the plot discussion, every episode is just as integral to the whole story as they are able to stand alone as wonderful pieces of their own. By the way, episode 10 is my favorite, and the one I cried the most at. I'm not going to spoil it yet, whether you've watched it or not. Just know that I sobbed uncontrollably for about 5 minutes. The detail and the world building of Telesis, the continent that the story takes place on, gives the setting life. Like the origin story for the term auto-memory doll, the different environments and places that Violet goes to, the reason behind the war, different battle names, the food they eat, the clear inspiration of early 20th century Europe, the made-up alphabet and numerical system. It's a great kind of fantasy world that leaves a lasting impression. It's a realistic one, but with its own unique flavors that make it not just any world, but Violet's world. And now, for the characters. Boy oh boy, were there a ton of them. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible with supporting cast, but it's still going to be a long one. Episode 11 really focused on the horrors of war and gave us a very real character, Aiden. In the real world of Hollywood badasses toting machine guns and bulked up bods, we get a frightened man who just wants to survive and return to his childhood love, Maria. This sort of character is just shockingly sobering, and he doesn't get the option to go home. He slowly succumbs to his bullet wound, and his words are passed on to his lover and his parents, leaving them to mourn and grieve. Yet they're thankful to Violet for what she's done for them, which was another part that used up many a tissue for me. Realistic and vulnerable characters make for good tragedy, and we have it here with Aiden. Not a huge setup in the episode, just enough to give us his personality and his dreams, and it's suitable. Another victim of war that I can't talk about nearly enough is Spencer. Him and his sister have this disconnect because she doesn't know how to console him after the loss of their parents, and he's too busy blaming himself for their deaths and drinking in sorrow at how helpless he is. Violet's simple letter bridges this gap between them and reminds him that he still has family, Luculia, and that she loves him, and this just... Man, to think this was just episode 3. It gets so heavy so quickly. And while we're on the subject of the death of loved ones, how about Leon? Never seeing his family again, a fellow orphan to Violet, holding a grudge against auto memory dolls, all because they're like his father, traveling scribes. And then Oscar, who lost both his daughter and wife, creating a child's play in memory of her. And even Dietfried, the asshole that handed over Violet to Gilbert like she was a piece of trash, not even human. But he still lost his brother and many of his men, and he holds her accountable for their deaths. Even though it's justified that his men died, just read the light novel, you'll know what I'm talking about. And of course, Anne Magnolia, the girl who clings to her mother in her final days, wondering why the world is so cruel to her and why she has to be left alone. All of these characters are just like Violet in that they've lost someone, yet she helps them accept their loss and live life anew, as she comes to do eventually with some reassurance and care from her colleagues at CH Postal. Speaking of CH Postal, Catalea served as a gentle, motherly character, and her interactions with both Benedict and Claudia are enough to give a good comedy break during some dreary moments. Also, she's hot. Damn, she's hot. Benedict is a total smartass, but I can appreciate that for the previously stated reason. He's a great comedic break. I wanted to see more of Erica because I like how reserved she is at most times, secretly longing for romance of her own and only speaking up for the sake of others. Under that shyness is a girl with a big heart. And Iris is a no-nonsense kind of gal, whose tomboyish behaviors and boisterous attitude made for very fun moments in the 4th episode when paired with Violet, which was basically all about her. Claudia is a wonderful secondary guardian for Violet. His humble demeanor and caring nature are a big part of Violet's development. Gilbert's love and care runs so deep for Violet that even if he never said, "I love you," we'd already know that he does. Even when he first meets her, he immediately clutches her protectively, later giving her a name, teaching her to write and read, trying to give this girl the life she never got to begin with. All to see that he won't be joining her on the remainder of that journey, and that she'll have to fend and live for herself now, as he intended in the beginning. To raise a woman, befitting her own name.
バイオレットだ。成長すれば、君はきっとその名前にふさわしい女性になる。君は道具ではなく、その名が似合う人になるんだ。
Violet Evergarden. The show, the girl, the whole damn story. What can I say about her that I haven't already said? We know where she came from, who raised her and cared for her, how she acquired her metallic arms, her quest to learn what I love you means. Every small development for this girl, with the help of supporting cast, and it just all meant the world to me. I was so invested. Seeing her graduate and become an auto memory doll, watching her smile for the first time, her first tears for someone else, becoming self-aware of her burns. As Hodgins so aptly put it, gaining her own purpose in life to help others with her new hands. And what a beautiful soul she has! She is befitting of her name. The girl mistaken for a doll in both physical appearance and in action, who was really a woman who just needed the right light shining upon her for her to blossom. Violet Evergarden. I've beaten this damn phrase into the ground while reviewing so many shows with so many female main characters, but it was like watching her grow up as a doting father would. I couldn't help but cry and laugh and feel proud of her. To think a fictional character could do so much to my heart, it's nothing short of wonderful. This character deserves all the love she gets. I could probably write a whole episode on Violet herself, but I don't think I have to because I'm sure if the anime didn't make it clear, my message surely did. This is so far my anime of the year pick, for good reason, and though I may be over gushing, it takes a lot to emotionally take me over to this degree, and maybe it's even done the same for you. So, thank you sincerely to the cast and staff for Violet Evergarden for your astounding work, and thank you, the viewer, for watching this video. This has been Sir Fluffy the Ninth, and I'm signing off for now. Take care, everyone.
バイオレット・エヴァーガーデンです。静か